You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Oh, y'all, The Whiteness of Wealth is a recently released book that examines how the current tax code unfairly taxes black people and prevents us from achieving the same kind of wealth our white counterparts have access to. Joining me now is Dorothy Brown. She's the author of The Whiteness of Wealth. Dorothy, glad to have you here. All right, Dorothy, so let's just be honest. Most people, they hate taxes. They don't want to spend the time doing taxes. They don't want to sit here and bother. They are like, look, I got other stuff to do. So lay out your thesis here. In terms of your notion of how the tax code is hooking white folks up and screwing black people.
Yes, so hopefully by the time they finish listening to this interview, people will realize taxes really do matter. So my research, which is based on 25 years of scholarship, shows that when white Americans and black Americans engage in the exact same thing, whether it's homeownership or marriage or jobs, tax policy advantages how white Americans do the behavior and disadvantage how black Americans do the behavior. So your next question is, what are you talking about, right? So let's take homeownership. First of all, tax subsidies for homeownership are only going to benefit people who own homes, and the majority of black Americans don't own homes. But that's not the worst piece of the puzzle. The worst piece of the puzzle is when black Americans own homes, tax law doesn't help them the way it helps white Americans. Why? Because black homeowners live in different neighborhoods from white homeowners. And the most homes that appreciate the most are in white neighborhoods where most black Americans don't live, and white Americans don't want to live next to too many black Americans. When homes appreciate and sell for a gain, tax law says if you're married, the first $500,000 of gain you get tax-free. So you say, well, Dorothy, what's the problem? When black people sell home at a gain, they get $500,000 tax-free. When white people sell homes at a gain, right? Well, no, because the people with the most gains are those living in neighborhoods that are almost all white. That's not where most black homeowners live. And more importantly, black homeowners are more likely to sell their home at a loss. And tax law doesn't allow losses on the sale of homes.
So let's sort of walk through this. And so when you talk about the tax code, when you talk about, for instance, right now there are blue state Democrats who are trying to get the provision of the property taxes, the mortgage taxes, put back on the books. That was removed by the Trump and folks and Republicans because, frankly, they wanted to penalize those particular blue states. Right. Well, if you're black and you're renting. If you're renting a home, that doesn't benefit you.
That's right. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So any tax subsidy for home ownership is going to benefit white Americans more than black Americans because the majority of white Americans are homeowners, but the majority of blacks are renters. And so
when we look at the black home ownership rate, 40, 41, maybe 42% right now, white Americans, it's above 60%. And so what's happening is our money is being handed to somebody else, and we're getting no return on that. But the person who owns the property, they're the ones who are benefiting from that.
That's right. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And when you look at home ownership in America, white middle class is built off the backs of home ownership. But it's not the same for black homeowners because we do not get the same return on our investment when we become homeowners because we live in neighborhoods where the homes don't appreciate as much.
How else is the tax code penalizing black folks but helping out white folks?
So let's talk about marriage. When white people get married, they are more likely to get a tax cut. Why? Because they have one stay-at-home spouse and one spouse who works in the paid labor market. When that couple gets married, they get a tax cut. Black married couples, on the other hand, like my parents, and I talk about them in the book. My mother was a nurse, my father was a plumber. Their incomes were almost equal. They never got a tax cut because of how the tax laws work, and for decades, they paid higher taxes. So how the tax laws work is if you have a single wage earner household where one person works outside and one person works inside, tax cut. If you have two equal earners, that most married black couples fall in that category, they don't get a tax cut. So here you have white and black Americans doing the same thing, getting married. But tax law advantages how white Americans do marriage. One single wage earner household, and disadvantage how black Americans do marriage, which is two equal earners.
One of the things also that I think when you look at the greatest beneficiary, real estate. Frankly,
Yes.
How Trump, the game is played, how you can just write stuff up, all those sort of different things like that. That also, again, when we're not owning land, we're not owning properties, owning building, we're not taking advantage. Look, I tell people all the time, and I remember when I would hire people to do my taxes, and people go like, "Man, I can't believe you spend that money." I said, "Well, first of all, if I hire somebody to do my taxes, that's also a tax write-off."
It used to be, yes.
And so the person was kind of like, "Okay, what do you mean?" I said, "Yo, white folks created the tax code.
Yes.
So I'm not going to just fill out an easy form and just go, oh, can I quickly get some kind of check back? No, I'm going to figure out the same thing they've been doing to get rich."
Right. Right.
And that's what they're doing.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and so how do we
That's
get...
right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and the real problem, I mean, the thing that struck me the most is, we're told if you buy a house, if you get married, if you do all these things, then you'll be able to build wealth. And here we have tax laws saying, but if you do it while black, no tax break for you.
Questions from our panel. Michael, I'm going to start with you.
First, good work, cousin, on your book. My last name is Brown, by the way.
Thank you.
See, you trying to claim the Omega? Man, move on.
If you have, when we talk about the wealth and the tax code and how does gentrification play into that? So when you talk about obviously the neighborhoods, especially neighborhoods that are changing, and when a
Yes.
family, when a grandmother passes away and the children have the option of taking it over, and they're like, I don't want to pay these high urban taxes, I'm going to sell it. Is that should they hold on to that property and maybe rent it out to help pay some of those expenses, or should they take the $500,000 or the $1 million or whatever it is and walk away?
Well, usually if a neighborhood is gentrifying, they're not going to have the option of $500,000, right? It's not appreciated that much. You need the neighborhood to gentrify, and then you can sell it for a lot of money. The problem is you see elderly homeowners in that situation, and they've been in their home for decades, and then the neighborhood gentrifies, and then property taxes shoot up, and they're unable to pay their property taxes, so they wind up losing the home and the possibility of equity. So if there are options, then you want to stay in the home, rent it out so that you're the owner. And when gentrification occurs, property values are going to increase, and you're going to wind up with potential wealth from selling the home, tax-free.
Got it.
Cleo and I go.
I'm shaking my head because I know what she's saying is true, and it almost kind of answers some of my question. My question for her was, what's an example of the recipe out of this situation? The situation of the black barriers to the wealth that white people get to access. You just gave an
Yeah, and here's the problem. Black people are between a rock and a hard place. So let's stick with home ownership. If you want a good financial investment, then you want to be the only black person in the neighborhood, in the all-white neighborhood. But that comes with problems. It comes with your neighbor calling the cops on you when you're trying to get in your house. It comes with you having to fight with the school because your black child has been targeted for doing nothing. So you have to deal with what I call racism triage, right? You have to deal with this nonsense and figure out, well, I got to fight that battle, but I can't fight that battle. So it's a good financial investment, but you're dealing with a lot of stress. Alternatively, you buy in an all-black neighborhood or racially diverse neighborhood where your children will see other people who look like them, where your neighbors won't call the cops, but you won't get the financial benefit you would in the all-white neighborhood. So I would advise people, live where you want to live, but be conscious and intentional. So don't be house poor if you're buying in an all-black neighborhood or racially diverse neighborhood. Stay away from home equity loans because your house is not going to appreciate the way your white colleague's house who lives on a different part of town does.
All right, then. Well, look, that is certainly some critically important advice. I just really, again, we go back to this whole, we hear all this talk, financial literacy. And this to me is where when you don't know, you don't know. And I just think in so many ways, we've got to have constant education, constant classes, churches, organizations. I know we love our organizations and our meetings, but the bottom line is here, if you're getting people to understand the tax code, understand how wealth is created, understand how folks write things off, gifts they make to organizations, things along those lines, that all that's important. And I think for too many of us, and I get it, for a lot of us, frankly, we have this idea that, you know what, that's for the folk who making six figures and higher. But there are other families who are not making that, but they are armed with the information. And when you're armed with the information, that is what changes the game.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And so that's just what I'm encouraging our folks to do, to get more of the information, to understand why we must really have a totally different outlook when it comes to our financial planning. And last point, if you can speak to, not allow our folks to use the excuse, well, my mama and daddy never told me. Okay, now you can change that.
Yes, you can read my book, right? And recognize the system was not designed for black wealth. When black Americans wind up wrestling wealth out of this system, it is, as I talk about in the book, it's a bit of luck and it's a bit of strategy. So the more you know, the more you can do. But the one thing I want your listeners to think about is this system was not designed for us to build wealth. So if we want to build wealth, we have to be smarter.
Yeah, no, we were the reason they built wealth.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't for us at all. So, but it is a matter of getting us to understand that, again, the information. That's the piece.
That's
It's the constant information. All right, again, put the book up, please, y'all. Just one more time, folks, to understand the whiteness of wealth, how the tax system impoverishes black Americans, and how we can fix it. Dorothy A. Brown. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans distributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. Roland Martin, Unfiltered.com.